go.
Cheers erupted from a crowd at the White House on Tuesday as US President Joe Biden signed the Respect for Marriage Act into law, granting federal protections to same-sex marriages for the first time.
Marriage is a simple proposition. Who do you love? And will you be loyal to that person you love? It's not more complicated than that. And the law recognizes that everyone should have the right to answer those questions for themselves.
The celebration featured performances by pop icons Cyndi Lauper and British singer Sam Smith. Lauper made a surprise visit to the White House briefing room on Tuesday to thank President Biden for the landmark bill.
Bless Joe Biden and all the people that worked on this.
The new law provides federal recognition to same-sex marriages, a measure born out of concern that the Supreme Court could reverse its legal support of such relationships. The measure, which passed the House and the Senate, drew rare bipartisan support.
Racism, anti-Semitism, homophobia, transphobia, they're all connected. But the antidote to hate is love. This law and the love it defends strike a blow against hate in all its forms.
House Speaker Nancy Pelosi recently said she was proud to make protecting marriage one of her last acts as House Speaker, said the bill promoted equality.
Everyone deserves to bask in the magical blessing of building a union with the person you love.
Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, whose daughter and her wife are expecting a child, called it a day of jubilation.
China has a plan to beat the US on chips. Reuters sources say Beijing plans to spend $143 billion supporting its semiconductor industry. Policymakers want the country to become self-sufficient in chips. They also want to counter US moves to slow China's technological advances. The sources say the plan could be implemented as early as the first quarter of next year. Most of the money will reportedly be used to subsidize the purchase of new chip fabrication plants. It is also said to include preferential tax policies for the industry. There was no immediate comment on the report from officials, but shares in Chinese tech firms jumped after the news. Chipmaker SMIC closed up by almost 10%, while Hua Hong Semiconductor gained over 17%. The subsidy plan comes as Washington steps up efforts to curb exports of chip-making equipment to China. Officials have been lobbying Japan and the Netherlands to tighten their export controls. The two countries are major producers of advanced chip-making gear.
At least 50 people have died in Democratic Republic of Congo's capital, Kinshasa, after heavy rains unleashed floods and caused landslides, the city's police chief said on Tuesday. Some homes have collapsed, others are buried in mud or flooded with water. One resident, Mama Eugenie, says she can't find one of her children. My house is gone with the rain, she says. I don't know where to go. Poorly regulated urbanization has made Kinshasa increasingly vulnerable to flash floods after intense rains, which have become more frequent due to climate change. The provincial governor and Congo's prime minister are visiting flooded areas, a representative of the governor's office said. Local officials will also meet representatives of the Interior Ministry and other state bodies to try and address the emergency.
Just days before Brazil's election in October, the country was shocked when one of the then president's closest allies, Roberto Jefferson, opened fire on police, setting off an 8-hour standoff with the officers who had come to arrest him at his home. The former federal lawmaker made it clear he would resist, saying, quote, "Run, you're going to get hurt." He then threw 3 stun grenades at the officers and sprayed their armoured car with more than 50 shots from his assault-style rifle. The incident, involving such a prominent figure, highlights the challenges facing President-elect Lula da Silva, who has vowed to disarm Brazil when he takes office next month. Under Lula's predecessor, Jair Bolsonaro, personal firearm ownership has surged, with the right-wing leader actively encouraging people to become armed. Nearly 700,000 Brazilians took advantage of Bolsonaro's looser gun laws, registering as hunters, marksmen or collectors, known as CACs, so they could acquire weapons. Bruno Langiani is a gun control expert at Sudapaz Institute, a local NGO.
Roberto Jefferson's case is very emblematic because of the risks involved in the CAC category, hunters, marksmen, or collectors. On the one hand, they have access to very potent weapons like rifles, and at the same time it's a category that's very radicalized, is being stimulated by President Bolsonaro with extreme right-wing rhetoric, one that goes against democratic institutions.
Reuters interviewed 8 people working on or advising Lula's transition team. They said they aim to revoke dozens of executive orders Bolsonaro signed on looser gun laws. But they face an uphill battle in their quest to get guns out of people's hands. There are 1.9 million privately owned weapons registered in Brazil, more than doubling from just under 700,000 when Bolsonaro was elected in 2018. Lula's team is now discussing an obligatory buyback scheme. But the issue is highly politicized and the political climate is incredibly tense. Bolsonaro is yet to concede the election, and groups of his supporters have been camped outside military bases, urging the armed forces to overturn the results. On Monday, Bolsonaro supporters tried to invade the federal police headquarters in Brasilia, clashing with security forces and setting fire to vehicles. Reuters has reported how a growing number of legal weapons have ended up in the hands of some of Brazil's most violent gangsters.
From Sam Bankman-Fried getting arrested to an outflow of cash at Binance. These are the week's big stories in the world of cryptocurrencies. The law caught up with former FTX chief Sam Bankman-Fried on Monday when he was arrested in the Bahamas. Regulators in the U.S. have charged him with defrauding investors. It's a stunning fall from grace for the one-time crypto tycoon who just a year ago was valued at over $26 billion. Bitcoin remains strangely steady amid the turmoil, holding at around $17,000. Traders wonder what happens next, rebound or new slump. Some market watchers say everyone who wanted to sell has already done so, leaving just the committed holders. But UC Davis professor Finn Brunton says hopes for a sustained rebound depend on some big questions.
Crypto as an industry is approaching a decision point where it needs to start to figure out what its applications are beyond being a purely speculative casino asset, which is what it has morphed into, right? A chip in a casino, a form of gambling.
And Binance may be feeling the strain in crypto markets. New data Tuesday showed it saw withdrawals of $1.9 billion in just 24 hours. Some analysts say investors are concerned about its financial reserves, but a Binance spokesperson quickly moved to reassure, saying it always had enough cash to cover withdrawals. The leading crypto exchange faces other pressures, including U.S. officials investigating its compliance with money laundering laws and sanctions.